Hello folks and welcome to the Vertigo Tea Party. Recently I went to the Xbox Area 1 tour here in Atlanta, and I wanted to make a video giving my feedback of my thoughts on the console itself and the various games that I played. First of all, keep in mind the Xbox isn't out yet. Some of these games are still in development, and the development builds that we played probably weren't the most recent builds, so any comments I make that are negative about these games, keep in mind, some of this stuff can change, like if it's a bad frame rate or if it crashes or something like that. Keep that in mind. Also, I'm going to be covering a lot of different games. So, for your convenience, I am going to put either annotations or links in the video description to jump to certain parts that you might want to jump to. Let's say you only want to hear about Ryse or you only want to hear about Dead Rising. I'll put links, again, in either annotations or probably in the description below the video, so you can just jump to that straight ahead. But really, all of the cool kids will watch the entire video. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump ahead. Now, as most of you know, the Xbox One launch is on November 22nd in North America, Europe, Australia, and South America. The only place that I am aware of it hasn't been announced is Japan. I think it's supposed to come out in next year in Japan. But my understanding is the 360 has never been that popular in Japan in the first place. Now, first of all, we're going to talk about the console itself. Most obvious, the controller. As someone who is not a fan, I think the regular Xbox 360 controller is okay. The Xbox One controller was great. It felt really, really good. The analog sticks have like this kind of a mesh or just a texture over like the circular areas of the analog stick that feel really good. Also, the D-pad. The D-pad was my absolute number one complaint on the 360 controller. The D60 on a 360... the D-pad on the 360 controller is garbage. I think pretty much everybody realizes and acknowledges trash. This one, I didn't get a chance to mess with it exclusively a lot, but it feels good. It has a click to it, so when you actually press a direction, it has a little bit of a click, not an audible click, but just you feel it. And maybe it has audible click, but the area I was in was very, very loud. So, but it has a very noticeable click. So I think it is going to be significantly better. Now, the D-pad on the PS3, I think, is great. Is it as good as the PS3 D-pad? Honestly, I'll have to see. But it feels like it's going to be way, way better. And again, that's good because, again, my number one complaint with the 360 controller is that the D-pad is garbage. But it felt really good in the hands. It just felt very natural, light. It was not as light as the PS3 controller, but it's not heavy either. If you have trouble holding up a 360 or Xbox One controller, you should probably work on getting that fixed. Now, one consistent problem I had, and again, keep in mind we're talking about dev games here, or dev builds of games. Loading times almost across the board were bad. For example, Dead Rising 3, I counted it, and it took about 33 seconds to go from telling it to start the demo to actually loading it up so I could play. 20 to 30 seconds to load was not uncommon on various games. So right now, the loading time is really, really bad. I don't know if that's because maybe they're running off the disc. Maybe they don't have the game installed, which seems silly to me. If I was showing it off, I would want to install it, make sure it's running at peak performance, which kind of makes me a little nervous because it makes me think it's probably installed. Actually, wait, I think with Xbox One, you have to install the games. So scratch that. It's almost certainly installed, and it still took 20 to 30 seconds to load. That's pretty damn bad. But again, hopefully maybe that's something that's because we're using dev build units that was causing that. I don't know. The first game I played was Forza 5. I want to start by saying I'm not really into the whole realistic racing game. I've never played a Forza game in my life. I did go to this event with two other folks that I used to work with. One of them is big time into the Forza series. So I'll give you his opinions as well. And some of you who watch the channel know him as Capanius. And I'll probably link his channel in the description below. But anyway, first of all, I want to say it looks really, really good. It looks like something that probably wouldn't run on a 360. So it feels next gen in that sense. The car controlled well, I suppose. Again, I don't play that type of game. I don't like racing games, period. But if I do play them, I prefer the arcade type. I prefer ramming into other cars and knocking them into the crowd or making them blow up. So again, this is not really my forte, so take my comments with a grain of salt there. Now, Capanius, I asked him about it. I was like, well, you're the one who loves the Forza games. What's your opinion? Sorry, I keep knocking the mic. I just realized that. I asked him, I was like, what is your opinion since you're a fan of the Forza games? He really enjoyed it. He said the game did actually feel next gen, and it just overall, he actually ended up playing it about 3 or 4 times. So, again, he's a big Forza fan. He liked it. So that's good news for you Forza fans. Again, me, it seemed cool, but not really not my genre. Next up, I played Dead Rising 3. Actually, chronologically, I didn't play it. Anyway, in the list, Dead Rising 3 is next. I'm trying to put the games that are most popular at the top. Now, I'm a big fan of Dead Rising 1 and 2. I love both games. And I understand that there tends to be a love-hate with Dead Rising. You either love it or you hate it. I'll say right off the bat, if you didn't like previous Dead Risings, you're probably not going to like this one. At least from what I played, which was, I think, about 5 to 10 minutes. Probably about 10 minutes of game time. It doesn't seem any different. For those of you out there like me, you're like, yes, that's awesome. People who didn't like it are going to like, oh, well, that sucks. So again, I don't think there's going to be anything in this game that's going to make you say, well, I hated Dead Rising 1 and 2, but this one's great. So keep that in mind. First of all, it looks great. Again, this does look next gen to me. The zombies look really good, and there's lots and lots of zombies. And now the other Dead Risings tend to have a lot of zombies on screen. But the difference here is you're outside, there's fires going, you can see the cityscape, and there's just hordes of zombies everywhere. And the game looks great. I didn't notice any frame rate issues, but another guy I was with said at one point he actually dropped to like 5 frames a second for 5 to 10 seconds, and then it fixed itself. Again, keep in mind, dev builds, so maybe that's something they're aware of that they're working on. I played it twice because I enjoyed it so much. I didn't notice it myself, but it did happen. It's very, very bloody. They definitely did not tone back on the blood. It's just as gory as 1 and 2. There's some of the weapons. You start off with several weapons, but it's just like Dead Rising. You pick up random things and use them as weapons. And you have combo systems where you keep hitting, as long as you keep enemies getting hit, your PP score, which, again, Dead Rising fans will know, PP is basically your XP. You get higher PP, it seems. There's also like a special attack that will pretty much auto-kill one zombie, and it's different for various weapons. Some weapons don't actually have a special animation. For example, like if I have the drill, and I use a special attack, you like grab the zombie by the back of the head and stick the drill in their mouth, and the top of their head will just explode and they'll fall over. And there's another weapon that's like the handle of it has a sledgehammer and like a battery tied to the top of it. And you can do a regular attack, or you can do a strong attack where you basically just slam the battery into the ground like Thor, and it sends out electrical shockwave like Thor, I guess. And then the special attack is you actually just haul back and slam it into one zombie from top to bottom, and it basically crushes his entire torso, is just gone. So it's definitely very, very gory, which, I love that. It's part of the Dead Rising charm, I think, was just the over-the-top blood and gore. It's much grittier as far as the graphics. I feel the first two, they were a little bit cartoony, a little bit. Not anywhere near Link or Wind Waker, but it was still a little bit cartoony. These are not realistic, but definitely more on the realism side and more on the gritty side, which I think it's fine as long as I can still dress up as a pretty princess and ride a tricycle through some zombies. I'm fine with it, with the actual graphics looking the same. But part of the love of Dead Rising, at least for me, is being able to put on bizarre outfits and go around destroying zombies in bizarre, twisted, sick ways. I think that's part of why I love it. Now, this might be because it was a demo, but it was also incredibly easy. There was tons of zombies, and a few times I would get surrounded by zombies, and I easily could get my way out every time. So it was a bit easy. It seemed almost impossible to die. But again, that might have been because it was a demo. I was definitely losing health, but I think that maybe it was on an easy difficulty because people were just trying to pick it up and get an impression of the game within 5 to 10 minutes. So that makes sense. Hopefully that's not the case, and I'm sure there'll probably be like a hard mode that you can play it on, because surely it's not going to be that easy. I guess we'll see, but I don't think that's going to be the case with the full game. One big change in this game is weapons, or not weapons, but vehicles. There's actually some cars you can drive. There's some cars you can't because they're just totally smashed and on fire. Excuse me. But there are other things you can drive, like cars, motorcycle, and I actually got into a steamroller, which was a lot of fun, as you can imagine. And there was a backhoe that you could get in. You could control the front and the back to help kill zombies more efficiently. Again, pretty much once you get going on one of these vehicles, you're going to massacre tons of zombies without any problems. The only issue is, and this actually looks really cool, is that some zombies will kind of grab onto the side and pull themselves up and try to pull you out. And again, in the demo, you basically just had like 5 seconds to press X. And if you did that, you just shoved the zombie off and went back to driving. Again, I'm guessing that's going to be different in the full game if you play it on medium or hard. But it definitely was a lot of fun just mass massacring the zombies, which I guess you don't need to say mass massacre. I guess that is kind of redundant. Just checking my notes, sorry. Again, from what I've seen, if you like Dead Rising 1 and 2, you're going to like this game, probably. If you didn't like those games, I didn't see anything that's going to change your mind and all of a sudden make you a fan of Dead Rising 3. Oh, yeah, shit, I meant to mention, Dead Rising 3 is a launch title. Forza 5 is a launch title, too. So this will be available day one. And my understanding is Dead Rising 3 is exclusive. I don't know if it's timed exclusive or whatever. You need to check that yourself. But yeah, it is going to be exclusive, at least at launch, which honestly is a little bit unfortunate because I actually have not pre-ordered a Xbox One. Whoops. And I kind of wish I did. Why do I kind of wish I did? The other reason that I wish I would have pre-ordered an Xbox One already, Killer Instinct. I played Killer Instinct about 3 times with Capanius. Killer Instinct is a launch title, and it is going to be exclusive. First off, it looks really good. Graphically, it looks really, really good. Hitting when you're hitting each other in combat, it really feels like there's a lot of impact. Like when Saberwolf swipes at Glacius, it really feels like bam, like that hurt. Like it's very visceral. I really love the way it felt. Sounds were great. The music was really good. And I really, really enjoyed it. And a big thing for me, because I really don't want to buy a fight stick, is it feels like it's not one of those games you have to have a fight stick pretty much to be competitive. Now, again, fighting games are not my forte anymore. I don't play them that much. But it didn't feel like Street Fighter 4 when I played it. It felt like half the times my moves weren't coming out because the controller wasn't accurate enough. But it feels more like when I do a motion, it works almost every single time. And I didn't feel like, I have to have a fight stick to make this game worthwhile. I didn't feel that way, which is great, because I'm not going to buy one, because I've heard the fight stick, the Mad Catz fight stick, is like $200 or something insane like that. I'm definitely not going to be doing that, because I don't want to put that much time into a fighting game. But for those of you out there who are like me, be casual, dirty word casual, it feels like you don't need to do that, and you could still hop on and have some fun with it. Let's see. What else do I have noted here? And I just, like I said, I kind of don't want to get this game because it starts what I like to call the cycle of sadness, which is basically I experience on StarCraft 2 as well. It's where first you start watching somebody play a game and they're playing it exceptionally and you feel like you're learning how to play from that person. So you're like, oh, I can do that. So you either buy or you reinstall the game and you start playing it again online and realize that you're still terrible. And then you get really sad and then you uninstall it. And then a few months later, you watch somebody else who's really good at the game, and you think, okay, I've learned now. And then you reinstall the game, and the cycle just starts going over and over again. That is what I have to call a cycle of sadness. So that's really the only reason I'm not interested in picking that game up. But I have to say, Killer Instinct, I liked it when it was on Super Nintendo. I was never like huge into it. I was more in the Mortal Kombat line, but I liked it well enough. So when they announced Killer Instinct for Xbox One, I was like, meh, whatever. That's cool, I guess, that they're bringing it back. But I have to say, after playing it and loading up Saberwolf again, who was my favorite character back then, I really felt like, yeah, like this, I'm totally digging this. So yeah, thumbs up for sure on Killer Instinct. Okay, the next is Ryse, which is also a launch title and which is also exclusive. The game wasn't, sorry again if I keep popping the microphone or popping the camera. You weren't playing in the campaign at all when you loaded up. It was an arena, still single player. It's all fighting against the AI, at least what we played. But you're basically in an arena setting, and you get random goals like kill all these guys or tip all of these, tip these vats of hot molten lava or fire onto this barracks or onto this ballista. So it kind of mixed it up a bit. And you also have a crowd rating, and you have to keep the crowd going by either killing enemies in gruesome ways or taunting. Just keep the crowd going. I think gives you extra points. It's kind of hard to tell. You also pick a god before you start, and depending on your god, you unlock special abilities while you fight. Like you build up focus as you beat on enemies, and then when you use your special focus attack, again, depending on which god you chose, you'll get some kind of a special attack. Like the one I picked was, I forget if it was Poseidon, but basically it made me move a lot faster and the enemies a lot slower. So that was very interesting. First things first. And this is a big deal, I think. In a Coliseum arena, and especially where one of your side goals is to keep the crowd going, I want to see the crowd like all in the stands. I want to see it packed out. I want to see people running, shouting and jumping and waving their arms. It all like the audio made it sound like there was so many people in that arena. But then when you look out, it's almost empty. Like there's not very many people in the arena. So that was immediately disappointing and a bit jarring because, like I said, it was very loud. The crying and the cheering and etc. from the crowd. But you look up, it's like, what is this? A Detroit Tigers game? It's like, come on. So first thing that I noticed was, this isn't necessary. This isn't really exploiting being next gen. It just feels like there's not enough there. And overall, the game just didn't feel next gen. Like graphically, it feels like that's something I could be playing on 360. Like maybe the textures wouldn't be quite as good, but it feels like that was something that could be played on 360. Which, I mean, honestly, we're getting kind of the point where it's like, well, yeah, textures is going to be a big thing, and the game did look good for sure, but it didn't really scream like next gen. Which not every game has to. Don't get me wrong. Not every game has to be like, oh, we're maximizing the graphics that we could never do on the 360. But when you're a launch title, or you're being pushed as a launch exclusive title, and only for the Xbox One, I kind of expect a bit more. It was let down, at least in that arena. And no pun intended. Now the combat. I was very, very disappointed in the combat. I love games like God of War, Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, X-Men, Wolverine's Origins. I love good combat games. You can mix combos up, do knockups, and do crazy combos and executions and all that shit. I love it. Ryse didn't have any of that, really. Basically, you had 3 attack buttons. Well, you have 3 main buttons as far as I could tell. You have your normal attack, you have a shield attack, and you have a roll. Oddly enough, unless I couldn't find it, and I talked to the 2 guys I went with, and they couldn't find it, there wasn't a block button. I'm like, okay, you give me a shield, but there's no block button. Apparently, one of the people I was with said, well, sometimes you block automatically. Like if you stop attacking, you'll just block. I'm like, come on, like I want block to be a manual thing. And like with games like God of War, Bayonetta, if I block or if I dodge, like perfect timing, like 2 or 3 frames within being hit, I should get like a bonus, like I knock the enemy back and they're stunned, or I get a free automatic hit on them, or whatever. I want that to be a time thing, not my shield as just a bludgeoning weapon that I hold in my offhand. That's just really, really weird overall. And it was just really a button masher. Now, obviously, people say the same thing about God of War. It's like, well, you just mash buttons. That's true to an extent, but if you really want to mix it up and play on tougher difficulties, you need to mix your combos up. Well, not mix them up, but really learn some of the important combos, like the knockup combos and the AE combos. I didn't feel like any of that existed in this game. Again, maybe it was there, but I played 2 or 3 times in the arena, twice actually, and I couldn't notice any difference. Because, again, with God of War, let's say you hit X, Y, and X, you'll do one combo. Or if you do X, X, Y, you do a totally different combo. If you do X, wait, and Y, you do another combo. With Ryse, I didn't notice any of that. Like, I tried like X, Y, X and X, X, Y, and I didn't notice any difference. Again, maybe there was, but if there was, it wasn't really noticeable. I pretty much just spammed X, and then sometimes I'd spam Y to mix it up a bit. So the combat was really, really bland. And there was like 2 or 3 taunt keys, at least, on the controller. Like, you have a taunt where you like slam your sword on your shield, and there's like one where you just kind of shout. I'm like, why are you wasting so many buttons on taunts? Like, give me a light attack and a heavy attack, and a throw and a grab. Mix it up a bit. It feels like you got all this power, and it's like it feels like an 80s beat 'em up. An 80s beat 'em up, but in 3D, where you've got like 2 attacks. So I was incredibly disappointed with the combat, because despite the QTE crap that was going on with Ryse when they announced it, I tried to take them at their word that, the QTEs are a very minor part of the game, even though that's half of what they showed, and blah blah blah. So I was like, all right, well, I really want this game to be good, and I gotta say, I was pretty damn disappointed. There are execution times that come up, like the enemy, after you beat them up so much, they'll have like a skull pop up over the head, and you can execute. And I'm not even sure I was doing this right. There are QTEs, like, I think, because let's say like your execution move, right? The guy's got the skull over his head. You hit the move to start the execution. Well, you run it, like, it starts as kind of the cinematic, or you, like, let's say you knock him down in normal speed, but then all of a sudden, like, he's like doing this, and you're raising your sword up, and it all of a sudden go like slow motion, like you would normally if you've played games with QTEs before. That's exactly where you expect a QTE, but there's no button prompt. There's not like press X now or press triangle now. Whoops, wrong console. Console, sorry, calm down, folks. X or now or Y now. It was just like stopped, and the enemy kind of like an outline went around the enemy for a second. So at first I wasn't doing anything, but then I was like, well, I think maybe I'm supposed to hit execute again. So what I started doing was hitting execute as those little things happen. So every time I went do like the whole bullet time thing, I'd hit it, and then it would resume normal, and then most times it would do it again, like exactly like that, by the way, exactly like that. And I would hit it again, and you'd finish the execution. But if I never hit a button, I still did the execution. But that goes along with what the devs were saying. I know they said that there are QTEs for the execution type moves, but you don't have to press them. You get like bonus points or maybe bonus effects if you time the QTEs right. I don't like QTEs, but that is okay, I think, where you say, look, you don't have to do this right 100% of the time. But if you do it, and it's only like one button, it's not changing all the time, and you time it right, you get some extra points, or you get like a little bit extra health back or whatever. I'm okay with that. Like, it does mix it up a bit, but it's not like, oh, you failed the QTE, well, the execution fails too, and now he punches you in the face. So I'm all right with that. But like I said, there wasn't a prompt, so I'm just guessing I was getting some kind of a bonus. And honestly, it was kind of too fast and furious to tell, like, if I was getting more points or whatever when I did the execution. Combat was very button mashy. Can't manually use the shield to block, which is crazy to me. Yes, it is. Sorry, I'm just reading over my notes here. Let's see. Executes were cool. Focus, again, you just kind of beat on enemies to get focus, and then you can use your special whatever power that the god gave you, which was, pretty cool. I guess there's a little bit of strategy in that. But yeah, I mean, my overall takeaway was the game looked good. I was very disappointed that, at least in the Coliseum area, it was so loud. Like, it was just packed to the proverbial rafters with people, but yet there was hardly anyone actually there graphically. And just the absolute shallowness of the combat. Again, somebody who loves this type of game, I just felt like I'm XXXYYY. And I'm just mixing it up because I'm tired of seeing myself flail. I want to see myself hit with the shield a few times. So that was pretty bland. And I've heard Ryse has been having some serious crunch issues. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game maybe wasn't 100% at release. So you might, if you're buying Xbox One at release, I would hold off on picking up Ryse possibly on launch day and check, people's reviews, see what they say, see if they get some of this stuff fixed. Because again, we were playing a dev copy, and it probably wasn't the most up-to-date version. So anyway, that is enough about Ryse. Not a thumbs up, probably a thumbs down as far as if I would buy it on launch. But I would keep an eye on it just to see if maybe they fixed some of that. Okay, next up is a game I did not even know existed called Max, the Curse of the Brotherhood. Now, I know I've said I'm playing dev versions, blah, blah, blah. But in particular, this game is not coming out until early 2014. So any negatives I throw at this game, keep in mind, again, it's really early. It's at least 2 to 3 months from release. So keep that in mind. I have to say the game starts off very weak. The idea is that you're a kid and you have this magic mark, and apparently this is a sequel. I never played or heard of the first game, I don't think. But basically you have this magic marker, and the idea is that it's a puzzle platformer, and the idea is that you use this marker to like either draw branches, or maybe if you're trying to get over like like a pool of lava, use the pen to bring up some like columns that you can jump across to get to the other side. Early on, when I very first started playing it, I was pretty bored because basically the marker was relegated to just pulling things up. Like again, like there's obviously impassable gap, right? And you can only use the markers on certain things. It's not like you can just use it whenever you want. There's pre-designated spots where you can use the marker to do pre-designated things for the most part. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But it's like, oh, well, to get across this gap, I just use the pen to bring these columns up. It's like, well, those columns could have just been there because there was no puzzle solving. I just had to stop to raise them myself. And this happened for a while. This happened for like the first 10 minutes or so. And I was like, wow, this game is really, really underwhelming. But, another big negative is there is a serious delay between when you tell it to do something and when it does it. So especially jumping in a platformer should probably be instantaneous, unless you want to go with an old school Prince of Persia type thing. But when I pressed jump, there was definitely a delay between when I jumped and when I pressed the button. The same goes for moving left and right. Like I could push left, wait half a second to a second, and then I would move. Same with the jump. Half a second to a second, and then I would jump. Probably not a full second, but again, obviously if you played all platformers, even half a second, that's a long time to go between a button press and the jump actually jumping. And I talked to Capanius about this because he played it as well, and he agreed. He noticed that as well, that there was a significant delay between jumping and pressing jump when you actually jump. And he said that actually caused him to give up because he kept missing jumps because of that delay. I kind of got used to it, but it's still frustrating to have to deal with the artificial delay. Because I mean, at least in old Prince of Persia, a lot of that delay is because the animation is going off. In this game, it wasn't like, oh, you're waiting for the animation, because nothing really happened until you jump. So hopefully, again, that's an early build problem that they're going to deal with. In the beginning of the stages I played, there's a bit too much trial and error. For example, you're running and there's these platforms with spikes on the bottom above you. So the first one you can run past and it drops and it stops. Right? It drops to the ground and it misses you if you just run on through. Now the other two, there's other ones, and if you just try to run through those, they fall and they kill you. Because at first I thought, oh, okay, well I'm just supposed to run as fast as I can to get through it. No, the first one you're supposed to run, but then the second one you're supposed to like run out and run back. Just trigger it to drop and then go. And there's another section that was similar to that where you're supposed to just keep running and then the things drop behind you, but then at the very end there's two traps that are stuck together, and if you keep running they kill you. you're actually supposed to stop, double back, wait for it to drop, and then go across. It's just very trial and error, and I usually don't like that type of gameplay where it's like, well, there's pretty much no way you could have known to do this. Just do it again now that you know how it works. So not a huge fan of that. Did not like that aspect. And it didn't happen quite as much later on. Now, later on, once you can start drawing vines, like you unlock an ability which allows you to like draw vines from the wall, it started to pick up a little bit. I started to see the puzzle elements because at first, again, because it's new, the only thing you had to do was draw the vines, and you jump the vines to get higher or across the chasm or whatever it is you need to do. Really straightforward, but then later on, you have to do things like draw the vine, jump over, and then you can actually use your marker to break stuff that you've drawn and draw the vine again, but maybe make it go up. So let's say you have, let's see if I can do this with my hands. Probably not good because I'm not good with the camera. Everything's backwards. So you have this platform. Let's say there's another platform higher up. So you're down here at the bottom. You draw the vine. You draw the vine angled down so that you can actually get to it and then run up. So then you break the vine, draw it again, but with an upward slant, and now you go up. Again, very simple to start with, but then some of the ones later on where you had to, sorry, just adjusting my pop filter. And some of the ones you actually had to like think about it, like because you can also only draw so much vine. You can't just keep drawing it depending on where you're drawing it from. So some of them actually get a little tricky near the end. So it started to redeem itself a little bit. Would I buy this at launch? Probably not. But it seemed like an interesting game, maybe something to look up if you like puzzle platformers. Check it out. Again, the name is Max Curse of the Brotherhood. Next, we have Loco Cycle. It's an interesting take on cycle racing. In a nutshell, you are a mechanic, and you are basically connected to this motorcycle, a sentient motorcycle, by one of your pants legs, and the motorcycle is pulling you along, and you can do things like forcing it to attack with guns, or you can use it to swing the back part of the motorcycle to hit enemies, and you're just going non-stop. You can't really stop. You're just going. And there's definitely some Portal influence here, obviously. The sentient motorcycle has a female robotic voice, and I immediately got some feelings of GLaDOS, even though it seemed this AI was more like naive and innocent, sort of, than GLaDOS, who was more obviously malicious and just vindictive. So, not saying the voice sounded the same. It's just kind of the whole like smarmy AI that's controlling the human to get whatever it is they want to do. Kind of that same feel, but definitely seemed to be a different overall and less evil attitude than GLaDOS. And I actually enjoyed this more than I thought. You can do like power boosts, which obviously makes you go faster. A lot of times that doesn't seem to matter though. There are some enemies that even if you're boosting or not boosting, you keep the same exact distance. Either they're behind you or in front of you, and it doesn't seem like it's an easy way to catch up or to lose them. But yeah, basically your attacks are like a shoot a gun or shoot guns from the front, and the cycle again can kind of fishtail and throw you around to hit enemies. You know, it seemed pretty simplistic overall. The dialogue's pretty funny, and the mechanic is a Mexican fellow named I forget what his name was, but so it's funny because he doesn't appear to speak English, but the motorcycle only speaks English. So they're trying to communicate, and for whatever reason, the motorcycle will say something, and then the mechanic will say something like, "No, please stop! Like, let me off!" And the AI will just completely respond differently, because I guess the idea is that she's misinterpreting what he's saying. So she'll say, "Well, yes, I do like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches," or whatever, in response to whatever he says. So there's a funny little dynamic there, but it's interesting. I do expect some people to get all their panties in a bunch because there's a Mexican mechanic being pulled by this motorcycle. Hopefully it's not a big deal. I mean, I thought it was interesting, but you know how the internet is these days. But anyway, aside from all that, again, it was interesting. I liked it more than I thought it was. As I mentioned before with Forza, I don't really like. It's not a racing game, but I'm not really into the whole like you're driving and you have to shoot enemies like Spy Hunter or whatever. So it's not really my type of game. So I probably would not buy it at launch. But it was definitely very Fast and Furious as far as that goes. I keep saying Fast and Furious today. But it was interesting in that going off the tracks. Normally, you go off the road in these games, automatically you're dead. This was interesting in that you could sometimes go off the road and you'd go through like dirt and all this, but then you'd find another road and you could hop onto that road and continue on. And so that was really cool that it wasn't just, oh, I went off the road, I'm automatically dead. So that was neat. And if you don't do anything, like if you just drive and don't crash in anything, don't shoot, your mechanic actually will start to lean up and heal you because you do have health. So it'd be interesting to try to balance, like, okay, do I attack or do I just dodge for a while and let my mechanic fix me up so that I can take a few more hits? So that was a pretty cool element to the whole thing. One thing that was kind of boring, it didn't present any challenge, is some enemies will attack you like kind of off screen, and you have to hit a counter button. And it's like a quick time event, but it's only one button. Again, if you're going to do quick time events, which you really shouldn't be doing, make it like a one button thing. Like, don't make it, oh, you have to pick out which button it is, or you have to push left and right. Make it one button. And in this case, it is one button. There's a counter button. And when these enemies attack you, like for example, there's one point where these are skiers skiing down the mountain and then trying to jump on top of me. And when you see the flash for the QTE, you press the QTE and you automatically just you kill them or knock them out of the way, whatever. That was, honestly, it was so easy, it was pointless because the window to hit the button was pretty wide. And even if you didn't hit it, you didn't take that much damage. Again, maybe this was on an easy setting, which would actually make a lot of sense given that it's a demo. But it just seemed pretty pointless overall because it's, like I said, just so easy just to counter them, and you automatically just kill them most of the time. So that was a bit silly and unnecessary, I think. Does it feel next gen? Not really to me. It didn't. Honestly, to be fair, and I should have said it at the beginning, sometimes it's hard for me to tell if something is really next gen. And this isn't like PC Master Race, but I'm used to games looking really good. So, and I don't play my Xbox 360 or my PS3 a whole lot. So it's hard to say, oh yeah, this definitely looks far better than any 360 game or any current gen PS3 game. Since I do see games like Metro, Last Light, and Crysis and other stuff on my computer, so it's hard for me to tell. So sometimes I might say this doesn't look next gen, and maybe it actually is something better than the current Xbox or PS3 could pull off. But so just sorry, keep that in mind. PC Master Race. See, I'm trying to see if I have any other notes on this game. Overall, again, we'll finish up with Loco Cycle. I've never heard of this game before. It's by Twisted Pixel, who did the Mr. and Miss Explosion Man and one or two other games. Gish? No, The Maw. Sorry, they did The Maw, I think. But yeah, check it out if this type, again, more the Spy Hunter, constantly going, shooting enemies on the road. If that sounds like your type of thing, definitely check out Loco Cycle. Let's see if maybe that's something you want to get. And it is a launch title. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. Next, we have Skylanders Swap Force. Now, this is a launch title. I think it's going to be on 360 as well. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it is. First thing when I saw this game, oh, this is a kid's game. This is just some kiddie game. And I wasn't going to play it, but I was like, screw it. Why not? While I'm here, let's just play the game. And I liked it. I actually enjoyed it. It's very simplistic. And we'll get into that in just a second. But it did feel, it was fun to play. Like, it was just fun to kind of pick up and bash enemies and run around and do these little mini games. So it was, I was actually pretty surprised. It does, I'm pretty sure this thing, and I think maybe this is like me 10 years ago not understanding the Pokemon thing, but my understanding, this has been an ongoing thing for a while, the whole Skylanders series, where in a nutshell, you buy these figures that have like a bottom half, like legs or snake body or a wheel, and then a top half, and you can actually take them apart and connect them, like intermesh them. Like, let's say you've got this robot guy who has robot legs and a robot body, and you have the snake guy with a snake body and a snake head. You could actually swap them out. So now the robot guy has a snake head and vice versa. And then when you do that, you take that figure, like physical figure, not like in game, but physical figure, and you place it on this like tree stump looking thing that connects to your Xbox, and it actually reads that and recreates that in game. Which, I mean, I realize that this has been around a while, but that's pretty damn cool. Like when I made my mix and match, it was like a snake body with an eagle head and arms. And when I did that and I put it on there and I saw that actually pop up on the screen, I was like, wow, that's actually really cool that is available. Again, I realize it's been around for a while, but to me, an old man, I was like, wow, that's just amazing what computers can do nowadays. So in that aspect, I think it's really cool. And again, I believe that this is mostly targeted towards younger folks. But I was talking to the lady who was working the event, and she said she talked to some older folks too, well, older, my age, or 20s, that spent like hundreds of dollars on this stuff. And we'll get into the price in a second, but they spent a lot of money on the other games, buying the figures to play them in the game. So I think it's targeted towards kids, but it's playable by adults. It's not so kiddified that an adult would enjoy it, like the Lego games. So, depending on the figure you choose, the base you choose, you'll have a different element, like nature or air or lightning, whatever. And some parts of the game can only be accessed by certain elements. But this is what the person who worked there told me, said that these are all optional. So if you're walking down a path and you see an indicator that says you have to be lightning aligned to go this path, it's not main. You don't have to do that. You can buy the game with a base set and finish the entire game without any of the optional stuff, without having to buy anything extra. But if you want to get to those secret little bonus areas, you do have to buy extra characters. Now, one thing I meant to ask but forgot was if you can change like mid-game. Like, what if I'm an Earth element and I walk up and I see, oh, this is lightning element? Can I just pop my character, swap an Earth element on the bottom, and do it right then? That I don't know. I meant to ask, but I completely forgot. I would think it's probably possible, but again, I do not know for sure. And like I said, it was a lot of fun. There were several little mini games that you played, but it's very simplistic in the combat. Again, think any of the Lego games where you have your basic attacks, you have some special attacks. Like my guy again was lightning focused, so I had this like ranged lightning bolt that did a lot of damage and would stun enemies, so I could run over there and punch them and beat them up and collect all the shiny things. And it scratches that itch where you've got little things that drop like coins or little emblems, and when you pick it up, it just feels good. Again, if you've played Lego and you've picked up the bolts or whatever they're called in Lego, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels good to just grab those. This game does the same thing. Like, I wanted to pick those up. I had no idea what they did, but I wanted to pick them up anyway because it just felt good to grab them all. I also swear I heard Brock Sampson's voice. I was playing the campaign, and I'm pretty damn sure that the guy who does Brock Sampson's voice from Venture Brothers also did a character in this game. So those of you who really love that guy's voice acting work, you might want to look into it. Drawback is the game is expensive. I looked online, and it's like $80 for a starter pack, which is, I think, like 3 figures and the game. That's a lot to pay for a game that, while fun, is a bit simplistic, and where a lot of the game is cut off. Like, you can't do a lot of the optional stuff. I'm very mixed on that. Like, mixed, mostly negative, though, where it's like, okay, you're going to pay full price for this game. In fact, more than full price for this game. But there's still parts you can't buy that we finished because you don't have the right figure. Like, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Now, I think the people who are already into the Skylanders thing, this is like a no-brainer for them. But what she did say, too, is if you've played the previous Skylander games and you have the figures from those games, you can bring those into the new one. So it's not like, oh, well, I have to rebuy all the figures that I bought before. That's not the case if you're already into it. And you probably already knew that if you were into the whole Skylanders thing. But, so that's cool. But somebody like me who would just be like, oh, I'd like to just play through that one time. I would definitely have a nasty taste in my mouth if I bought it and was like, oh, like half the game or a quarter of the game is cut out because you have to go buy these figures so that you can mix and match and then unlock it and then go in there. It would just feel pretty dirty unless the main campaign is just super long. Unless you're talking like a full 20, 30 hour plus campaign, I would honestly feel kind of ripped off. But again, there's obviously a crowd out there that's loving these Skylander games. So again, that's not going to be anything new to them. And if they're fans of the game, they probably have several of the figures anyway, so it's not going to be a big deal. So overall, it didn't really feel. I mean, the graphics were really good. Like, they were obviously a little cartoony, but they looked really good, really clean. Again, doesn't necessarily look, next gen, but does it really matter all the time? Not really too worried about it in a game like this. It looked good enough. It looked very pleasing to the eye, and it was just fun. So if you're okay with spending $80, and again, I'm pretty sure that's the price I saw. You might be able to buy the game by itself, but again, you're not going to play it without any figures. Maybe you could borrow them from someone else, but yeah, $80 for someone like me who knows nothing about Skylanders, has none of the figures, doesn't know anyone with the figures, probably not going to be worth it, but still a fun game. Next is Zoo Tycoon. Now stick with me here. I love the Tycoon and the building / simulation type games. I don't even know what genre. I love this genre, but I don't know what it's called. I love games like Theme Hospital, Dungeon Keeper, Tropico, Caesar 3, Pharaoh, all these games, Roller Coaster Tycoon, where you build things and you've got to attract people and get money, and these problems come up that you have to deal with. I love that kind of crap. So Zoo Tycoon is a launch title, and I did set on to play because I want to try it. The very first thing that was obviously a problem, the frame rate. The frame rate was bad. Like, it stuttered a lot. Like, just going over the top of the zoo and just moving the camera around and zooming in, because you can go in the first person perspective and do things like feed the animals and just look at the animals up close. That was really choppy. Again, the console's not out yet, early development builds, but that's one thing I really hope they fix, because the frame rate had serious issues. And I was talking to Capanius while we were looking at playing another game, and I mentioned it as he was looking over it. He's like, yeah, I can tell from here it's got frame rate issues, and the person's not even playing it. Like, it's just doing the auto rotation on the demo, and it was obvious that there was frame rate issues. So hopefully that gets fixed. Now, and this is probably because it's on a console, but one thing that also turned me off was, let's say I want to build a safari biome, if you will, for the zoo, because I want to put lions in there, right? So if you want to now, if you're asking me, I want to be able to design how big it is. I want to fit it into this rectangle or whatever space I have available, and say, okay, all of this Tetris block is safari. But instead, you have to pick. You either pick small, medium, or large safari pen, and when you pick it, it's just like a roundish block of safari, and you just had to find a place that it will fit and throw it down, and it'll automatically put like paths and whatnot into it. So I really didn't like that. I want to be able to design the size and the shape of the pin itself. And I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you really get into these games and you're trying to really be efficient in making money and getting your visitors in and out and all that stuff, I want a high level customization as far as how to build it. And I really didn't feel like I had that at all in this game. And again, that's probably because it's a console and it would be very difficult to try to draw the pin when you're using analog sticks, which honestly I was pretty apprehensive about this type of game being on a console at all. And already seeing some of the sacrifices they had to make to get on a console, as much as I love these types of games, I probably wouldn't play it because I feel like I would be more frustrated than anything. You can go in the first person mode, and there's things you can do, like you can call, like I saw somebody call the animal over, and the animal walks over, and you can like pet it, and you can set up feeding stations and feed the animals. And I didn't get to see this, But a guy I was with said there was actually a meat feeding station for the lions, and you can actually, you see kids like throwing meat to the lions. I'm like, yeah, that's a great choice. I'm sure that's that nobody would say anything about kids getting raw meat in their hands and throwing it to lions that are like 1 foot away. That could never possibly go wrong. But still amusing, and I think this would be a good game for kids. And not to say that it's just a kid game, but I think kids will probably be more apt to overlook things like the blockiness, and that's more the efficient builder in me. But again, I think kids would love it. Getting all these elephants and lions, and then being able to go first person and interact with them to some level. I think that would be cool for kids. There's also a lot of management as far as like you have to have feeding stations in the pen so that the animals can eat. You need washing stations so they can stay clean, and there's all these other stations that you need to build inside. There was other little hitches that were kind of annoying. So, for example, let's say I would get a message that says, "Oh, the elephants are unhappy because they don't have any way to clean themselves. You need to put a cleaning station." So I'd go put the cleaning station in, and the message would like change. I think the message would change and say, "Oh, now they're happy because they have a place to clean." But I couldn't figure out how to get the message to go away. I mean, maybe there's a button press, but I tried just pressing X on it, and it just closed the messages. And if I open the messages back up, that message was still there. So I'm like, I don't need to know that about the cleaning station because I put that in 20 minutes ago. You can bugger off with that message now. But again, maybe that's something that they'll fix later on. There's the standard stuff. You have to build bathrooms and places for the visitors to eat, etc. Again, is this a next gen game? Not really, because the game doesn't look that good even when you go in the first person. It's kind of meh, especially given the frame rate issues. That it really doesn't feel next gen with that. But even if they fix that, again, I don't feel like the graphics are enough to say like, oh wow, this really feels like next gen zoo tycooning. But again, if this is going to be a game that's targeted at kids, and I really, really feel like it is, it doesn't need. It looks good enough. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look like, oh my god, like this is amazing. Like zooming in the first person really is like I'm throwing meat to a lion, throwing all caution to the wind. So again, if you have kids, maybe look at picking this up. But you might want to wait until after launch to see if they get like the frame rate issues resolved before you do grab this one. Peggle 2 is next. It is a launch title, and I honestly don't know what to say. I mean, it's Peggle 2. I enjoyed playing Peggle from time to time. It was fun, but I mean, there's nothing new and revolutionary here. It's about the same. Now, the big change is there's like an animated character on the side who has special abilities. For example, I was playing and there was like kind of an undead girl on the side. And when you hit a green block, the next 2 or 3 rounds, I think it is, all of the blue blocks don't actually bounce your ball back. So if you're not familiar with Peggle, it's a lot like Plinko from old Price is Right, where basically you shoot this little ball and it bounces around and you have to knock all the orange blocks out, and you only have so many like attempts to do that. But with like her power, for example, let's say there was like a blue block and then an orange block underneath it, and the orange block is the one you want to knock out. Well, when her power is activated, before her power is activated, normally you hit this block and it would bounce away because physics and science. But when her power is activated, you still hit this block, but there would be no bounce back. It would just keep going straight through and finally hit that orange block. So there's a little bit of strategy in that, but let's be honest, Peggle was mostly luck based, and I realize it's probably people who put like 500 hours into Peggle and will say, no, it's not luck based. You can figure all this stuff out, and I'm sure that's great and all, but for the most part, we mostly just kind of guessed and hope for the best with Peggle. It's fun, but I don't know how much they're going to charge for this. Hopefully not much, because I mean it's just Peggle. With a 2 on the end. But I will say this, the animation for the character looked really, really good. Like, could be in an actual cartoon or maybe even a movie. Good. Like, the animation, the art, direction, and all that. And her reactions when you did things. looked really damn good. Like, I'd definitely give it up there. Like, it looked fantastic. But again, I wouldn't pay more than $10 to $15 for a Peggle game. If you really love Peggle, maybe more than that. But from what I saw, and I played all the available levels in the demo that was there, it wasn't like, oh wow, like they've really changed the game of Peggle. This will revolutionize Peggle. Like, I didn't feel that, but that's pretty much what I expected. I expected, a few little new additions, and that's pretty much what I found. It's Peggle 2. And finally, I will end with Crimson Dragon. This is a launch title. I'd actually never heard of this one either. It's a semi-on-rails flying shooter. You're playing the dragon, or you're riding the dragon. I can't remember which one it is. And you are on rails in that it's just pulling you forward, but there are parts where it's like, oh, you have to look out for these stalactites, and you have to fly around. You're still being pulled forward all the time, and you can't like do a loop-de-loop or anything, but you still have to kind of dodge out of the way of various things. Honestly, this is not my type of game at all. So keep that in mind with what I'm about to say, with some of the things I'm about to say. You control your character with the left analog stick, and you aim the crosshairs with the right. And that's really pretty much all the controls I could figure out, well, other than the actual shoot button. And, waves of enemies come out, and you try to shoot as many as you can. And after that wave is over, you get a score based on how many you shot, I guess, and how much damage you took. Honestly, though, not my bag. First of all, the controls were inverted. I despise inverted controls. I hate them. And I checked the options very quickly, and I didn't see an option to swap the inverted controls. Again, dev build, this might change later, but that alone made the game pretty much unplayable for me, was the controls being inverted. I could not get the hang of doing it. Every time I wanted to move the arrow up, I had to push down. I freaking hate inverted controls. And I know for flight sim type games, people love it, but no, I hate those. So I did not enjoy it, even if they weren't inverted. Again, this is not my type of game. The on-rails type shooter, or the space type shooter, not really my bag. It looked okay. I didn't think it looked fantastic. It looked all right. Honestly, I would check other people's feedback on this one. I didn't like it, but I don't like those types of game. So I think my opinion on that is not all that valuable. I guess if you're like me and don't like that type of game, then this game's probably not going to change your mind. So that was Crimson Dragon, which again is going to be available at launch. So that is my experience with the Xbox Area 1 tour. I think that's what it was called. Overall, I've got to say, the games of show for me were Killer Instinct and Dead Rising 3, for sure. Ryse was disappointing. I was really looking forward to seeing that. I was disappointed. Skylanders was a bit of a surprise. I enjoyed it more than I thought it would. Again, it wasn't great, but it was all right, and I probably wouldn't buy it because it's too expensive. But it was still fun, again, under that Lego video game series. If you like that type of thing, I think you would like probably the Skylanders. Other games there that I didn't play, Battlefield 4, I didn't bother because I would never play that on the console anyway, because playing FPS on console is like tying your shoes with boxing gloves on. Yeah, you can do it, but it's a pain in the ass, and why would you bother? There was a few other games. Oh, there was the Kinect Sports game. I did not play that. However, I did talk to the guys I was with. One of them at first said he didn't notice any difference in the Kinect. He said if you would have took him in blindfolded and hit everything and asked him, okay, is this a 360 Kinect or is this an Xbox One Kinect? He would have thought it was Xbox One Kinect. He didn't feel like it was the motion tracking and the latency was any better. He felt it was just as hard to control. Now, the other person said that because it actually worked in a dark room, because it was pretty dark inside of there, he said it actually feels like it was better in that level, because I'm not used to Kinect myself very much, but I guess he's used it a little bit more. And he says if it's dark in the room, he says I guess the tracking is a lot worse, which makes sense. But he says given the lighting, he felt at least in that level it was definitely better. So, but other than that, I guess he didn't say that there was a world of difference. But the only Xbox Kinect game they had there was the sports, and the only game you could play was the Ski-Doo water wave racer type game. So I don't know if that's a great choice for a Kinect game, but that was what was there. FIFA was also there, not a Kinect, but just a game. Did not play that because I honestly could not give a damn about FIFA. Sorry if you really like FIFA, but yeah, not interested. I think I played pretty much every other game that was there. So overall impressions, I like it. I did look at the console a little bit, but it was dark and the consoles are kind of down by the ground and covered up. Not really covered, but it's just, I mean, it's a console. I don't really care about the look that much. I mean, yeah, it's interesting, but really, who gives a damn? After a week, you're not even going to notice anymore. It's just going to sit in your entertainment center. So who cares? I actually did touch one because I was curious to see how hot it was. Because remember, the PS3 actually had serious heat issues when it came out, where the PS3s and the little plastic demo kiosks actually were overheating. So I actually touched one of them, and it was about as hot as you would expect. So it didn't seem like it was that heated, but that's not a very good test. But it is what it is. So overall, I think it's going to be interesting. The controller, I'm very pleased with. I think it might actually, in my opinion, compete with the PS3 controller, which I know some people are like, oh my god, how could you say that? The 360 controller is much better. Which I honestly don't even see how that's possible, because the 360 D-pad alone gets 50 points off for being an atrocious abomination. So, but anyway, if you like the current Xbox controller, you pretty much almost certainly going to enjoy the new one. In fact, Campanius, who loves Forza, he said that he liked the Rumble because it felt better, and he was saying that when you shift gears, the Rumble is different in Forza. So like if you're in first gear versus fifth, the Rumble will be slightly different. Again, very, very minor detail, but for those of you into, especially like the games like Forza, might notice that and be like, oh, this is really great. A great little addition. So so the Rumble, I mean, I noticed it, but I mean, I get so used to Rumble at this point, I don't pay much attention. But oh yeah, overall, I think it's a good console. The games felt good. We did have a couple cases where the games crashed. I think in two of the cases, I think is because they tried to go to view the achievements and the game kicked out to the dashboard. So I think that was part of it. And then Peggle 2 of all games crashed on another guy who I was with. So that was a bit weird. But again, I would hope most of that's going to be taken care of by the time the console is released. So anyway, I have rambled on enough. I will say that now I wish I had one to at least play Dead Rising 3 and probably Killer Instinct. But we'll see. I'll get one eventually. I do have a PS4 pre-ordered, but as far as I know, there's not going to be any kind of events showing off the PS4. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you've got to try the Xbox One, or if you'd like to leave a question, you can leave a question in the comments below, and I will answer it. I do read all my comments. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, like my videos, as it helps me a lot. And I will see you next time.